Tira Vandachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Raja Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vandachari Jamuna Tira Vandachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Namaskritya Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadurya Astapreshu Bhadreshu Nisham Bhagavata Vasevya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. So reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 29, Explanation of Devotional Service by Lord Kapila. And we'll take turns reading verses 1 through 14. And then we'll come back on 11 and 12 and read the purport. So starting with text 1, looks like 1 and 2 are together. Devahuti inquired, "My dear Lord, you have already very scientifically described the symptoms of the total material nature and the characteristics of the spirit according to the Sankhya system of philosophy. Now I shall request you to explain the path of devotional service, which is the ultimate end of all philosophical."
Devahuti continued, "My dear Lord, please also describe in detail, both for me and for the people in general, the continual process of birth and death, for by hearing of such calamities we may become detached from the activities of this material world.
Please also describe eternal time, which is its representation on the earth, and by whose influence people in general engage in the performance of lives and duties."
My dear Lord, you're just like the sun, or you illuminate darkness, or you illuminate the darkness of the conditional life of the living entities, because their eyes of knowledge are not open. They are sleeping eternally in that darkness without your shelter, and therefore they are thousandly engaged by the actions and reactions of their material activities, and they appear to be very fatigued.
Sri Maitreya said, "O best among the gurus, the great sage Kapila, moved by great compassion and pleased by the words of his glorious mother, spoke as follows."
Lord Kapila, the personality of Godhead, replied, "O noble lady, there are multifarious paths of devotional service in terms of the different qualities of the executor.
Devotional service executed by a person who is envious, proud, violent, and angry, and who is a separatist, is considered to be in the mode of darkness.
The worship of deities in the temple by a separatist, with a motive for material enjoyment, fame, and opulence, is devotion in a mode of passion.
When a devotee worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead, offers the results of his activities in order to free himself from the
Inebriates
of fruitive activities, his devotion is in the mode of goodness.
The manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everybody's heart. Just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material conditions, flows towards the Supreme Lord.
He does not accept any kind of separation. Shalokya, Sharshti, Samipya, Swarupya, or Ekatva, even though they are offered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
By attaining the highest platform of devotional service, as I have explained, one can overcome the influence of the three modes of material nature and be situated in the transcendental stage, as is the Lord.
All right. So we'll go and look at text 11 and 12, which is sort of the highlight of this section. Madguna Shruti Matrena Mai Sarva Guhashaye Manogatir Avishtina Yata Gangam Basam Uttao Lakshanam Bhakti Yogasya Nirgunasya Hi Udahitam Ahaituki Avyahita Ya Bhakti Purushottame. Madguna Shruti Matrena Mai sarva guhashaye Manugatir avichina Yata gangam basambhuto Lakshanam bhakti yogasya Nirgunasya yudahitam Ahaitukya vyavahita Bhakti Purushottame
Madguna Shruti Matrena
Madguna Shruti Matrena
Guhasaye
Mai Sarva Guhashaye Manugatir Avichina Yato Gangam Basamukado
Lakshanam Bhakti Yogasya
Dakshanam Bhakti Yogasya
Nirgunasya
Nirgunasya Yudahitam
Ahaituki Avayavahita
Ahaituki Avyavahita
Yabhakti Purushottame
Bhakti
Purushottame. So do the word for word together. Mat of me, guna qualities, shruti by hearing, matrena just, mai towards me, sarva guya ashaye residing in everyone's heart, managatahi the heart's course, avinichina continuous, yata as, ganga of the Ganges, ambasa of the water, ambuda towards the ocean, lakshanam the manifestation, Bhakti Yogasya of devotional service, Yogasya unadulterated, he indeed, Udahritam exhibited, Ahaituki causeless, Avyavahita not separated, Ya which, Bhakti devotional service, Purusha Uttama toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. It's a famous prayer, the mood of Queen Kunti. Purport. Maybe we can take turns reading this purport. There's a few paragraphs. Volunteers. Yes,
Purport. The basic principle of this unadulterated pure devotional service is love of Godhead. Madguna Shruti Matrena means just after hearing about the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These qualities are called Nirguna. The Supreme Lord is uncontaminated by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he is attractive to the pure devotee. There is no need to practice meditation to attain such attraction. The pure devotee is already in the transcendental stage, and the affinity between him and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is natural and is compared to the Ganges water flowing toward the sea. The flow of the Ganges water cannot be stopped by any condition. Similarly, a pure devotee's attraction for the transcendental name, form, and pastimes of the Supreme Godhead cannot be stopped by any material condition. The word avichina, without interruptions, is very important in this connection. No material condition can stop the flow of the devotional service of a pure devotee.
The word ahituki means without reason. A pure devotee does not render loving service to the personality of Godhead for any cause or for any benefit, material or spiritual. This is the first symptom of unalloyed devotion. Anya vilasita sunyam. He has no desire to fulfill by rendering devotional service. Such devotional service is meant for the Purush Atma, the Supreme Personality, and not for anyone else. Sometimes pseudo-devotees show devotion to many demigods, thinking the forms of the demigods to be the same as the Supreme Personality of Godhead's form. It is specifically mentioned herein, however, that bhakti, devotional service, is meant only for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, Vishnu, or Krishna, not for anyone else.
Brahiti means without cessation. A pure devotee must engage in the service of the Lord 24 hours a day, without cessation. His life is so molded that at every moment and every minute and every second he engages in some sort of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Another meaning of the word avyate is that the interest of the devotee and the interest of the Supreme Lord are on the same level. The devotee has no interest but to fulfill the transcendental desire of the Supreme Lord. Such spontaneous service unto the Supreme Lord is transcendental and is never contaminated by the material modes of nature. These are the symptoms of pure devotional service, which is free from all contamination of material nature.
Again, Tamrindas I was born in ignorance, but the spiritual master has opened my eyes. With the torchlight of knowledge, I offer my obeisances unto him. So this section of verses is quite nice, giving different descriptions of the different types of devotional service, different levels. This one in particular is very powerful and gets to the heart, you could say, of what Bhakti Yoga is and why Bhakti Yoga is supreme over other yogas. There's many different ways that one can make spiritual advancement, but Bhakti Yoga is the most powerful. And this verse talks about why that is, or at least gives some of the mechanics for it. And at first, when we think of the idea, the concept that I have to just do everything for the pleasure of the Lord, and 24 hours a day be thinking of his pleasure only, and set aside all my own desires, the mind rebels at that. It's a little hard for us to go there. At least for me, I'm like, well, what about me? I have to have something that I'd like to do. If I just do everything for God, then I'm going to be dissatisfied. And in the beginning of practicing Bhakti Yoga, there are rules and regulations. There are things that we do, things we do eat, things we don't eat, that we get up early. We do certain practices that might go against our natural tendency. So there's some constraint. We have to control the senses. And we have to learn how to control the mind and not do certain things. So there is some artificial, you could say, or some external imposition on us to mold up, to give up some bad habits. But that process is to purify, because we're contaminated. By coming into contact with those material energies, we become contaminated. And we start to think, I'm this body, I have this desire, that desire. And so we lose touch with that which will really make us happy. And we think, well, if I get this thing, I'll be happy. If I make so much money, if I live in such a neighborhood, if I have this thing or that thing, if the latest gadget or whatever it is, we think these things will give us happiness. But what this verse is trying to get us to understand is that if we go very deep within the personality of who we are, there's a nice verse in the 10th canto. I forget, 10:14-9, I think. I forget the actual verse, but it's describing the infinite qualities of the Supreme. Supreme Lord has infinite number of qualities. And in the purport there, in his Prabhupada's purport, and then you can go and read a purport of other acharyas, and it describes how Krishna has infinite qualities, and therefore, because of that, there's a quality of Krishna that each living entity can appreciate that no one else will really appreciate. They might not even see it. You'll see something, you'll be attracted to Krishna in some way that no one else will resonate with that. They might not even see that quality. And conversely, every living entity has a quality that will please Krishna that no one else has. So we all have a very unique relationship with the Supreme Lord. That's why we exist. He brought us into existence because he had some little itch, some little yearning for us to give him that no one else can give him. And so when we understand that our identity, that we have a relationship with Krishna, a very deep, intimate relationship, and that's what this verse is getting at, is that when we understand who we are, that propensity, it's described in the Shastras, the Bhakti Yoga, we should offer Krishna that thing that's valuable to us. That will please Krishna. If we just give him something we don't care about, it's still offering, he'll accept it, and we still make advancement. But when we offer him something that we really value, then that has a much deeper effect upon him. So when we understand this reality that my very being, those propensities and qualities and things that make me who I am, if I offer that to Krishna, then we start to become in alignment with his will. And you can look at it in two different ways. I want to only do those things that Krishna wants. And as we become purified and we remove our false ego, we remove our contaminated senses, and we get in touch with who we are as a servant of Krishna, then we find that those things that I want to offer to Krishna are those things that he wants. And so then it becomes a very natural, this mood of the Ganges flowing to the sea. Our very nature is to love him, not because we're going to get something in return. That's a mercantile exchange. I'll give you this, you'll give me that. But we love Krishna because the act of loving him, the act of offering him something, gives us pleasure of its own. He's so beautiful, he's so sweet, that just doing something for him makes us happy. And the thought of him doing something back in return, we don't even, when we become purified, that doesn't enter our mind, that we're not interested in that. And in the beginning, it may take some time to get there. In the beginning, I know for myself, I practiced all these tenets and activities because they made me happy. I thought, oh, well, when I do my morning prayer, when I'm pleasing the spiritual master, when I'm performing service, all these things purify me, I become happy. I'm getting some happiness, so that motivated me. Okay, these are good things to do. But as we develop in our relationship with Krishna, our happiness becomes less important. And we can see this in it talks about how the Bhagavad Gita is kind of the basic platform of education. It's very elevated, so it's not basic. But there's Bhagavad Gita, I'm not this body, surrender to the Supreme Lord. Then you have the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that we're reading, which is graduate study material. And then you have postdoctorate books in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, talking about the lifetime of Lord Chaitanya, where Krishna comes as a devotee to teach us how to be devotees and to experience the nectar of devotional service. And then when you study in that book, there's verses that echo the mood of Srimati Radharani that basically say that my happiness is measured on Krishna being happy. And if making Krishna happy gives me some difficulty, that difficulty becomes pleasurable for me. And you can hear this sometimes when you hear the stories of book distributors or devotees who travel. They'll talk about some difficulty what they went through, and then the outcome of it, how it was with pleasure, because these things led to this nice service they were able to do. And so this is the point we want to get to where we align ourselves and we just want those things that would please the Lord. And on a very deep level, as we purify, of course it takes some time, because our mind, generally speaking, until it's very well trained, our mind is not trustworthy. It will tell us, I don't like this, I like that, I don't like this, I like that. And generally speaking, if the mind tells you, no, I don't like it, it's probably good for you. What's actually good through the intelligence, then we can trust it a little bit more. But generally speaking, the mind is questionable. So we have to train it. And so that process of purification sometimes can feel a little rigorous or a little constraining. But again, as we become purified, our desires to become purified, we think about, let me just please Krishna, let me make him happy, regardless of if it makes me happy or if it's difficult or if it's arduous or whatever it may be, let me not think about that. Let me just think how I can make him happy. As we cultivate that mood, Krishna becomes purchased. And Krishna is a person, he's not a robot, it's not mechanical. So Krishna is a person, and Krishna is thinking, you went through so much difficulty to do this to me, to offer me this flower, to surrender your life to me. You did all these things to make me happy. I don't know how to repay you for that. So then Krishna looks for ways to make us happy. And then he reciprocates. And when that happens, you do that once or twice and you feel Krishna's reciprocation. It doesn't take very long until you get addicted to that. You think, this happiness, when Krishna smiles on me, when Krishna does something in my life that I can understand, he recognizes that I exist, that he cares for me. That experience is so sweet, then you don't want anything else, nothing else. Once you experience that, nothing else will give you pleasure. Maybe for a moment or some distraction, but it's like, no, this, yeah, I tasted, I felt that, I want that again. The problem with Krishna consciousness and the problem with Krishna's mercy is it's so powerful and it's so sweet, it becomes so addicting that nothing else will satisfy you. And you say, okay, I just have to have more of that. And if something is good, then more is better, at least in my philosophy. Now, materially, that doesn't work. If something's good, it tends to, have repercussions later. But spiritually, if something good, more is better. Krishna's the best, and you can't get enough of him. And so when we cultivate this mood of, let me just not worry about myself, the mind is always thinking, yes, but you'll suffer. The thing we have to understand and hardwire into our brain is that one will never suffer. One will never be the loser if he surrenders unto Krishna. If your mind tells you otherwise, tell your mind, you go jump in a lake. I don't care what you're saying. The Shastras say this. Devotees say this. If I surrender to Krishna, I'll be happy. Whatever I think will make me happy, it'll come about. I don't understand it, but it'll work. If I just make Krishna happy, I'll be happy. If we can lock that one concept into our brain, our spiritual success is guaranteed. Because Krishna is the supreme. He's the supreme absolute controller. He's your best friend. And the spiritual dynamic, and we see this play out over and over. We see it with Srila Prabhupada. We see it with great devotees. We see it in the pages of the Bhagavatam with Krishna's cowherd boys and cowherd girlfriends, that they're trying to make Krishna happy, and Krishna is trying to make them happy. And it becomes this competition. If you look at the Bhagavad Gita, the whole pastime of Arjuna fighting, Arjuna was glorified for 6.4 million people or something, though everybody was slaughtered on both sides. There ended up about 6 people, I think, lived after that battle. And everyone understands that Arjuna was the greatest warrior, and he brought this about. And if you ask Arjuna, or you try to glorify Arjuna for this battle and doing all these wonderful things, he would shake his head and laugh at you. He says, no, I didn't do anything. When the battle was over, at the end of the war, Krishna said to Arjuna, okay, step down off the chariot. And Arjuna was a little puzzled because Krishna should get off first. But Arjuna got off, and then when Krishna got off the chariot, the whole thing just crumbled. And Arjuna was like, well, what happened? He said, well, actually, all the arrows and all the mystic weapons that have been fired at us for the last 18 days, this chariot was finished a long time ago. But because I was on it, it was able to stay together. Now that Krishna stepped off, the whole thing just crumbled. And so Arjuna fully understood that it looks like and this is another kind of secret to success, externally, it looks like Arjuna is fighting this battle, and he is fighting it. It took every ounce of his energy. It took every bit of intelligence he had. Arjuna had to work very, very hard. It took everything he had, all of his ability, and yet he knew, all my ability is not enough. This happened because of Krishna. And this is a mood that Srila Prabhupada tells. We were at a japa retreat one year, and it was described different ways to help improve one's chanting of the Mahamantra. And the devotee said, he quoted Srila Prabhupada, he said, if you want to, there's different things you can do to chant sincerely, see yourself chanting sincerely, etc. But he said, if you chant with the mood that Krishna, I'm trying but I'm failing. Please help me. That mood of despondency or dependence creates a dynamic that then, if we're feeling dependent upon Krishna, then Krishna can help us. If we feel like, no, I got this, then good luck, you're on your own. So Arjuna understood this. And so this is the dynamic for Bhakti Yoga, for devotional service, is to develop this mood where let me just please Krishna. Let me not worry about my own situation. Krishna will take care of whatever I need somehow or another. We try, what does it says? We pray as though, we act as though everything depends on me. We pray as though everything depends upon Krishna. So it's not that we say, okay, Krishna will take care of it. I don't have to do anything. The food will cook itself, it will get distributed, and the car will get filled up, and the books will go out. No, we have to put effort. We have to do things with their energies. And sometimes that's not easy. But sometimes we're asked to do things. Happens to me all the time. I get a call from a spiritual master, hey, can you figure out why this thing doesn't work? He's on the other side of the planet. I'm like, I don't know why that thing's not working. I wouldn't, if I had it in my hand, I wouldn't know why it's not working. And so somehow I have to try to figure out and help him. And Krishna always says, well, just try this, do that. And he says, oh yeah, it worked. Thank you very much. I don't know what I did. I don't know how the problem got solved. But when we have this dependence, yes, I'll try with my effort. I'll use my intelligence and my abilities as best I can. But I understand that that won't be enough. Krishna, without his mercy, these things are going to happen. That creates that important dynamic. But back to the point of this verse that I find very, very profound and important and satisfying, is that as we develop that mood as purely as we can, that let me just serve Krishna, let me make him happy, then Krishna, he's thinking, let me, my devotee is trying so hard, let me do something to make him happy. And on the surface, it sounds kind of mercantile. It sounds like, okay, I'm going to do this because Krishna is going to reciprocate. But the mood of the devotee is he's not looking for that reciprocation. He doesn't even want it. The devotee is not thinking Krishna is going to reciprocate. The devotee is thinking, I get so much pleasure serving Krishna. Let me just have an opportunity to do that service because that will make me happy. Krishna is thinking, let me reciprocate with this devotee. Let me do something to make them happy. And it becomes this transcendental competition or exchange. The devotee is trying to find a way to please and serve Krishna, and Krishna is trying to find a way to serve and please his devotee. And of course, it's very sweet, and Krishna gives us this mercy, but it's even sweeter when we can do something for him. And so that's the essence of Bhakti Yoga. That's devotional life. When one gets engaged in that dynamic, any material pleasure that raises its head, any of your senses or somebody, any other enjoyment, you look at it and you laugh. You're like, no thanks. That's okay. That's not going to give me the satisfaction I feel. There's another verse here. I don't know if I can remember it. It mentioned here, Ahaituki was mentioned here as being without reason. There's another verse that's a very famous verse where that word is used. It's Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 6. Saiva pumsam parodharmo yato bhaktir adhokshajay haituki apiti hata yayatma suprasadati. So the supreme occupation or dharma of one's existence is to engage in this unmotivated, uninterrupting service. Only that can completely satisfy the soul. And when we talk about satisfaction for the soul, two things. Happiness has to have two qualities to completely satisfy the soul. It has to be eternal, it has to never end, it has to always get better. So whatever thing gives you happiness, you can measure those two things. Does it ever stop? Then it can't be accepted as real happiness. And if it's not real happiness. Real happiness never stops and always gets better. And that happiness comes about when we have this unmotivated, uninterrupted. We just want to serve Krishna, no matter what we're doing, if it's in our sleep, in our thoughts. And sometimes we think this mentions every second. that we're engaged. But we have to brush our teeth, we have to sleep, we have to put gas in the car, we have to do all these other things throughout the day. How is that thinking of Krishna? But you can always think of Krishna in your mind. I went through an interesting experience when I used to work in Washington, D.C. I worked at National Geographic. I used to have to take the metro. I lived an hour out of the city. So I'd take the metro to work, and low people, so I was a little shy to just chant out loud. People, they get disturbed, they look at you funny, and it distracts you. So I would chant, I would have my beads, but I would just chant very, very softly. You could hardly hear. It was almost just like mentally, I would count off the beads, and in my mind, I'm just seeing the mantra, and it became kind of a mental meditation. And an interesting thing happened, and I did this every day for years, not all my rounds, but some of them. And then an interesting thing happened. I would get to work, and I would put my beads away. I'd go about my day. I'd be sitting in meetings, and in my mind, the mantras just keeps going, because that pattern is there, and that habit is there. And so then I learned that actually I can be doing so many things, but in my mind, I'm thinking of the Maha Mantra. I'm thinking of these spiritual topics and Krishna and his qualities. And then I realized it's not devotional service is physical. We may do physical things for him, but it's of the heart that we think of him and we meditate on him, and ultimately we desire him, a desire to please him. And so that's another point that this mentioned in the, I think it was in this verse. There's a few nice verses in this section, but it mentioned that with no material impediments. Was it in this verse? Yeah, I think it was, without cessation. Anyway, I think it was in this verse. Oh yeah, here, it's in the verse itself. Just as water of the Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition. So that's another important point to understand. That devotional service or bhakti yoga cannot be impeded by anything. Sometimes we think, well, I can't go to the temple, or I can't do this, or I can't do that because I'm sick, or I have to do something else, and so my devotional service is hampered. But there's nothing material can ever stop devotional service. There are things that can facilitate it and make it easier, but don't ever think that because of X, Y, or Z, now I can't engage in bhakti yoga. It's not true. There's nothing that can impede it. It can always be practiced. Sometimes it might be easier, sometimes it might be a little more difficult, but nothing can ever stop it or interfere with it. So anyway, this exchange, that is, the devotee develops their love and their attraction for Krishna, then that relationship deepens because he's a person and he reciprocates with us, and it becomes very, very sweet. And we find that those propensities we have, those things that make us us, as we offer those to Krishna, that's what he wants. That's why we exist. And so it's a very deep, intimate relationship we have for him. And as we tap into that, then our devotional life becomes very, very thrilling and very satisfying. And I think I'll stop there and see if there's any questions or comments or corrections. Yes.
Thank you for class, Ruth.
Wunderbar.
So you said devotional service can't be impeded by anything material. I'm wondering, like in your own life, personal observations, and maybe that of others in your life, like what mentalities you've seen that have been impediments, and like what mentalities have been most transformative for your devotional life?
Well, that's a good question. The ones that have been most helpful are from when you associate with advanced devotees, you see that they're never disturbed, even in situations where there seem to be reversals. You know, we can't make the mortgage, or we're going to lose the house, or some catastrophic thing happens. I remember, I can give an example. Many years ago, there were some lawsuits against ISKCON because of mistakes that were made in the past, and there was a real threat there was a danger that ISKCON would lose its temples because the court was saying, you know, we're going to take this away. And the whole thing worked out and everything was fine. But in the midst of that, there was a real concern that this could be catastrophic. And I remember my spiritual master when he said, well, the worst that could happen is we lose all our temples, and then we just go back on the street and do Harinam like we did in the beginning. And we did that before, and it worked out fine. So what's the big deal? If that's the worst thing can happen, then we just go back to our roots and we go on the street and do Harinam. And we build it up all over again. And so I thought, wow, that's a vision that, like, devotees, advanced devotees don't see obstacles. I remember when I was in management and on temple president and different management roles, it was very hard for me. I'm not a real good manager. And I read this quote, this pastime, and I think it was in the Lamrita, that Bhakti Swarup Damodar, he went to Srila Prabhupada, and he was assigned, I don't know if it was BI or what the project was, but he had this project, he had this headache, this difficulty with the service. He went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I'm having this difficulty with my service. He said, you have so much responsibility all over the world. I have this one little thing and it's giving me so much headache, and you have so many, how do you deal with all these problems? And Srila Prabhupada said, problems? He said, I don't see any problems. I just have opportunities to serve my spiritual master. And so when I read that, I really shifted my thinking. I'm seeing all these things as problems, but advanced devotees just see things as things, and they just deal with them. And so they're fearless. They understand one somehow or another. So that mentality of just having what Prabhupada calls unalloyed faith in Krishna. I don't know how, I don't understand it, but Krishna, Ishvara Parama Krishna. Krishna's the supreme controller, it'll work out. Not because of me, but because of Krishna. So I'll just trust that if I do what, you know, whatever I can do is whatever I can do, but ultimately things will work out because Krishna is who he is. When we have that faith, and I have found that very helpful for me. Mentalities that are not helpful that you ask, both in myself and we see in others, is when we criticize devotees, or when we start to doubt that, you know, this doesn't work, it's not working because of this. We look for all these material things and say, because of these material things, it's not going to work, or we start to question. We have to be positive. We have to be enthusiastic. We have to be confident that, look, it might look like an impossible dilemma, but Krishna makes impossible very easy. So I'm just going to trust that even though I can't see it and I don't understand it, I'm not going to question that Krishna can resolve it. It's kind of related to the first one, that we want to be positive and we want to reject the negative. Negativity is a downward spiral, and it can take us in the wrong direction real quick. And so we have to maintain enthusiasm and optimism however we can. And the best way to do that is by associating with people who are enthusiastic and optimistic. And people who are negative and down, you know, then that's not good association for us, because that's just going to make us doubt or question or get discouraged. Does that help? Hand over here. Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, I think one thing that kind of helps me, or kind of what you talked about, it's like transcending that dualistic mindset of good and bad, because like good and bad are often tied to like personal emotions, and that is also attached to what we want or outcomes that we desire. So like just seeing things as they are, and then allowing that to like come from be the foundation for our motive goodness, where we're able to be more of service, because like, okay, if this happens, this thing will do this. This will create this outcome more, you know, just leaving the outcomes up to Krishna and focusing on what we can do about what's in front of us.
Yeah, that's good. No, it makes a lot of sense. There's a statement in Christian Science, which is a Christian denomination based on the Bible. They have a saying they say, I think they print it in the front of their books. There's nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And it's just, Prabhupada used the example of a scalpel. A scalpel in the hands of a doctor is a very good thing. It'll save your life. Scalpel in the hands of a thief is a very bad thing. It could hurt somebody. scalpel's not good or bad. It's just how it's used. So yeah, we look at things and the tendency of the mind, our little rascal mind, that we think is so good for us, it tends to judge and say, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. And that whole duality, Bhagavad Gita talks about whole duality. No, it just is what it is. But what's good is those things that bring us closer to Krishna. What's bad is those things that take us away from him. But yeah, we don't want to get caught in that duality. Good points. So I'll stop there. Oh yes, go ahead, continue.
You mentioned at the very beginning of the class that whatever is our propensity for service is what Krishna wants to receive because there's more meaning in giving something that we value than something we don't value. I think it's like a general difficulty to be engaged according to our propensities in the movement in general because there's the needs of institutions and then there's like what you actually like to do. So and also there's like maybe your propensity, like I'm thinking about myself, of course, is artistic, and then there's like, okay, but I need to make money because I can't live in this world if I don't make money. So how do you do that? Like how do you serve according to your propensities, but also survive in this world and please the institutions you serve?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm sorry I can't give a good answer. It's something I've struggled with most of my life. Given a society of devotees, we have to do so many things that may not match with our propensities. And ultimately, the whole idea of propensities is tricky because what are our real propensities? Until we're very purified, we may not even really know because it's a lot of conditioning in our senses. And we have to do the needful. We have to do things that may not align with that. As Vaishnavas, we can transcend that, and Vaishnava can do anything. They can act as any in any service, and it's still transcendental. As we go on, I used for many years, for most of my spiritual career, spiritual life, I was waiting for Krishna or the spiritual master devotees to tell me, do this. This is your service. If you do this, Krishna will be happy. And of course, there were things that when I lived in the temple, they just would give me a service and I would do that and understand, okay, that the temple presence pleased, Krishna's pleased. But I never got like some life mission of you should write or you should do this or that. So then it's like, well, what's my propensity? I was wanting Krishna to tell me what to do. And then I started to realize, well, that's a little bit robotic. If we just do what we're told to do, well, yes, it's good. In spiritual life, that's a good thing to do, to surrender, to learn how to surrender and learn how to control our senses. But ultimately, we want to offer something to Krishna. If you look in the spiritual activities, the devotees compete over making garlands. So this garland will please Krishna. Well, this will please him even more. And so then they look for ways to please him. So as we look for things that we can offer to Krishna that are generating from us, he's like, oh, you did that for me? Then that has more meaning. Now, how we do that in our life, and it's so difficult now in Kali Yuga because we have to make money, we have to do so many things. But we just try to find occupations that maybe it isn't 100% what our propensity is, but it's not contrary to it. It's in alignment with it. So I can use, some artistic ability, get a job where you can use some of those artistic things, design posters or advertising or different things. Sometimes that can work. Sometimes it's hard because you end up using your propensities for things that are like, this is like really materialistic. I don't really want to use my talents to do that. So it can be a little bit hard. I can't give you an easy answer, other than when you're able to do something you like to do, you tend to be good at it. And when you're really good at something, generally somebody will pay you for that. So I tend to think and deal with principles, and then how you apply them, that is not always easy. That's like, because I still struggle with that sometimes. There are some things I really like to do, and I would never get paid to do it because I'm not, it just doesn't work. I have found that the things that I end up getting jobs doing has, for some reason that I can't explain, it wasn't intentional, but they're the same things that I'm asked to do in devotional life. And so I just do the same thing. It's mostly all computer related, and that's my profession and that's my service. I used to like doing it. Now I'm like, go out and plant some flowers or work in the garden. It seems to be a little more satisfying. But the propensities I have, Krishna is engaged in ways that, in fact, all my jobs I got from filling out a resume, putting on the things I did at the temple. And that was my, oh, you did all that? Okay, we'll hire you. So thanks to my temple service, I was able to be employed. I know that's not a very good answer, but it's the best I've got. Yes, I don't know how much. You're waiting for prasadam.
It's outside, never mind.
It's outside, so now I'm keeping you from prasadam. That will get me in trouble. Well, we can stay. You can ask your question. Follow up to her question. Okay. We can.
You see, when you were saying, like, how do we serve the institutions how do we find a propensity within the institutions we serve? I was thinking, like, are we serving the institution or people within it? And like, maybe there's room to like change structures to suit our propensities. So my mind kind of went to like our generation of, being bhaktas and like the room for leadership and like creating spaces for things that you want to see. It's kind of like that vision for more inclusive service. Yeah.
Tatra Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Somebody had their hand up in the back. I don't know.
I have